Welcome, everybody, to Huddle Up with Matias Bueno, episode 24. Today's guest is Bison's women's golf captain, as well as a three-time women's golf Bison's MVP and the 2017 women's golf amateur champion of Manitoba, Marissa Naylor. Marissa, classmate of mine, and it's super awesome to finally have this all come together. Golf being one of the big sports right now that's increased during COVID, and obviously with it not having been played for you guys, we're going to dive deep into golf, and I'm really glad to have you on this episode today. It's going to be super awesome.
Thanks for having me.
So first things first, with how big you've been with Bison's golf, what was the thing that actually got you into golf? Because, it doesn't seem that it was very popular before and that the industry was kind of in a bit of a lull. And now that it's one of the main sports that I've seen people try over the last 6 to 7 months, what really drew you to it before this big golf craze happened?
So how I started golf is actually a really funny story. Before golf and even till this day, I 10-pin bowl, but my brother and I hit up Bell Acres Golf and Country Club when I was about 12, 13 years old. And I would go 3 holes every single day during the summer because I wasn't one for sport camps. And so like athletes in action, all that kind of stuff. So I went to Bell Acres with my brother, golf 3 holes, and then literally called my dad. I was like, you know what? I'm done golfing. This is no fun. Take me home. And then fast forward a year later, and I turned out to have kind of a swing. And the pro there at the time, Steve Wood, he came on as my coach or just a good mentor. And he took me on. He's just like, you know what? You have something. Let's use it and let's take this forward. I was like, hey, awesome. So at that time I started going 9 holes, which was a huge improvement because if anyone knew me at the time, 3 holes was like, that was it. And so 6 holes was even an accomplishment. So going 9 holes and actually enjoying myself not only made my brother happy at the time because he can golf more, but I got to see how not only well and how well developed my game has slowly become over that time, even though I was so young, but more in the sense of like how enjoyable the game really is. I think golf stands out in the sense compared to other popular sports like football and basketball and volleyball and hockey and all that kind of stuff is because in golf, you're the only person on the golf course. And unlike in college, you can have your coach come up to you, but you're the only person. If you get frustrated, you get mad, like you got to figure it out yourself. And so I think that's a really, really big thing that not only happens in golf and sport, but is really helpful in life. And I think that's one thing that really brought me in when I started golf that I realized I was like, you know what, like this is what I want to do. And this is one of my big passions. And so it was around 2016, 2015, where I really started finding my passion, finding my groove. And anyone that knows me knows I'm super competitive. So that's when the competitiveness started really kicking in. And I was like, you know what, like, I want to go with this. And so I competed in a few junior championships before that, but they were more just for fun. I never knew that I can go to nationals and travel with it. Like I went to Halifax in 2016 with 2 good friends of mine, and that was a blast. And so that's when I think I really realized, like, you know what, I can do something with this and maybe get my education paid for, just golf on a team in the future. I mean, here we are with Bisons. And so that's been super nice. But yeah, I really started honestly just going by 3 holes and really did not like the game at first because I found it super boring, I'll be honest. But I think the biggest thing that grabbed me was the competitiveness and the fact that you got to figure stuff out on your own. And you got to grind it out. If it's a bad round, like you got to figure it out. If it's a good round, you can enjoy yourself. Awesome. But I think it's just that's a really big push of how I can relate this to life, how I can relate this to everything else that's going on, especially like a global pandemic right now, but just everything like that. And I think that's the biggest thing that got me into golf, has continued me into golf. And like I said, I'm really competitive. So as soon as I found that I could be competitive and travel, which I love to travel as well, that's what really pushed me to continue and pursue it. And I think that's just the biggest thing that really kept me in it to this day. So
you're also, so you talk about you really got competitive in 2015, 16. You mentioned, and obviously we mentioned in the beginning, you were the person that won the 2017 amateur championship for women's or for golf in the women's category, Manitoba. So would you say the biggest turning point then in terms of your golfing career, or what? Take us through what actually happened in that tournament that really made everything come together.
I mean, that tournament, I feel like it was yesterday, to be honest with you. It was funny because I found a link and I sent it to my dad a few weeks ago. And it was when it was actually a 3-hole playoff with a good friend of mine, Charmaine McKidd. We were at Bell Acres, sure enough, the golf course I started on, which I think it was just a really well-rounded kickstart to what was to come. And so like you said, 2017 was definitely the kickstart. I would say more 2016 because that's when I made the junior team. I had a few failed attempts, and I'll be honest, I was kind of giving up on myself at that point. But I had a lot of good coaches and mentors from previous sports reach out to me. And they were like, Marissa, you have a talent, don't waste it. And so I made the team in 2016 for the juniors, and then did okay in Nova Scotia. Wasn't happy with my performance, but I found that, you know what, this is something I want to go like with Golf Canada competitions, and sure enough, college. And so 2017 happened, won the AM in a 3-hole playoff. Actually had a little bit of a shiner on my face. That's a whole different story for another time. But yeah, so that was a really big kickstart. I was actually in the lead for all 4 days or 3 days of the competition, which was super cool. That in terms of that pressure really came from 10-pin bowling and being on Team Canada. Because being a leader and having not too much of a lead, I think I only had 3 or maybe a shot or 2 shots, maybe 3 shots on Charmaine, and I know she was on my heels all day, and so all tournament, and so as soon as she made, I think it was on the last day, we were tied at one point, and that's when actually the media met us on, like, I think it was hole 15 or something, and that's when the nerves started kicking in for me personally out of the whole weekend. Because I was like, you know what, like this is real, like I can make history here for myself and actually make a statement. And so it was on 18 and we were tied by that point, and I had about an 8-footer uphill on Bell Acres Golf and Country Club on hole 18. And so it was an uphill putt. And my putter that week was my absolute best friend. It literally, I could pull it out, and I swear I had a curse on it at some points. I'm not even going to lie, because it was just so easy to sink really anything. There was so much confidence, I guess is the word I'm looking for, that I can really put it in my hand and know I'm going to sink something, and know that, do you know what, at least I'll have a chance to even get close. If it goes in the hole, great. And so when I had the 8-footer uphill, I had the free press camera straight and looking at me, and I was like, hey, Marissa, just balls in front of you, holes in front of you, just make it easy on yourself. And so thankfully I sunk it, and that pushed to a playoff, and it was actually a 3-hole playoff with Charmaine. And then I had a chance on the first playoff hole to cut it, and I lipped out actually a 4-footer, which definitely heard the rahs and hoorays on that in hole 1. But then hole 2, yeah, she made a really good putt from about 10 feet, slider right downhill, and it pushed me to sink my par putt, and I did. And then hole 3 came, which it was a par 3. If anyone's golf Bell Acres, they know the par 3 really well. And so it was over the tree, and it was a back pin on a hill. And so when I saw the pin on the hill, which I've already played this hole once today because we already finished 18 and this was a playoff, I was kind of like, okay, I know where to put the ball. I just got to put it in the right spot. And so I put it in the worst spot possible, and I was like, oh no. So as soon as I made that shot, I was like, you know what, we'll see what Charmaine does. And she put it also in not such a good spot, but she made her putt, made a really good putt uphill. And then she was still away actually from where I was, which I think at the time, now thinking about it, was a really good thing, because it not only gave me a line, but it kind of gave me some time to relax and, you know what, be like, you know what, Marissa, just focus on the shot at hand. And that's literally what I did. And she lipped out, unfortunately, on her putt, and that gave me the chance to capitalize. And the rest of it was a blur. All I remember was my dad running up to the green, giving me a huge big hug. Like I said, I had a shiner on my face, so anything that I was putting or seeing, I was like seeing double of, because of an injury that I had that past Monday. I decided to go play softball, and not the most smartest choice I've ever made in my sports. But and then yeah, my coach was simply telling me to go home, and I was looking where I was going, but I clearly was not looking, and I just banged my face into a fence. And I mean, that was it. And I told my coach, actually, he was actually my bowling coach as well. And he was a huge golf fan of mine. He was just like, Marissa, like, you could have told me you had a provincial championship. I was like, no, Kevin, it's fine. Don't worry about it. And so sure enough, he like cursing at this, and I go to the hospital. It's midnight, got tee off at 9 a.m. the next day, and just put some ice on it. I was like, you know what, whatever. And I think that was actually a huge thing, because at the time of that in 2017, I had a decent mental game, but I think I was just lacking some confidence in myself in my game. And I think having the shiner actually was almost a blessing, because it turned my brain off completely, and it just allowed me to focus on the shot at hand and trust my abilities and not even think about anything else. And I think that's a really key thing to actually that have not only pushed me to win that weekend, but just to really push me in golf, and I mean, to everything I've done today. So
well, and I think the thing that's really interesting about that story is that the thing that seems to be the biggest hindrance was actually the best thing that happened. And especially in a sport like
100%.
golf, for anyone who's tried or has played for a long time will know, even if you play for many, many years, even if you've been considered very, very good for many years, you can still have bad days and you can still, slice, you can still pull the ball, you can still be, or look like an average golfer, right? So,
100%.
And the average golfer is not very good because it's such a difficult sport to play and also to be successful at. And, really having to think about your shot is just one of the worst things that I've found, especially my experiences playing golf. Like you're just sitting there and you're looking at the ball and you're just like, you're thinking of all these things, but when you're in that position where you got to shine or you got something else that's kind of, I guess, taking your mind away from it. And as soon as you're like, okay, let's just go hit the ball and I don't have to worry about anything else because I can't, then that's when you play your best. And I find that, from what I've heard from people who play golf, that when they have kind of spaced repetition between rounds, or at least for people that aren't good, they have the first few holes are really good. And they're like, wow, I'm actually getting the hang of this thing. And then once you play the back nine, then you're like, okay, I actually really suck. Which is such a funny thing about golf. But
I think it's very, very similar to another sport I've been grateful to have many opportunities in, is 10-pin bowling. It's a very easy, or not easy sport, but very fun sport to go out and enjoy. But it's a very difficult sport to master. And I think that's the biggest thing, that even with COVID, that has pushed people to try it. And that's a huge thing I think that this pandemic has given golf, like in general, is people are trying the sport, and that is huge. And I think that's the biggest thing, is it's a hard sport to master, but if you keep working at it, you just get closer and closer and closer. And I think that's the biggest thing in my career that really pushed me to just keep going, was seeing those little successes, seeing those little progresses, and just how everything came together. Because as soon as I saw things working and coming together, that's when I wanted to work harder and go further. And 2017 happened. And I mean, I haven't looked back since. And since that moment and since that day, I've had a lot of support and just encouragement, a lot of people pushing me, which I say it a lot of the time, that I really could not have done a lot of things I have done without them. And so whether it be coaches, mentors, friends, or family, like from you name on the list, that they've really helped along the career and along many things. And I think without them, a lot of it wouldn't be possible.
And it's super important to have that group of supportive people around you, especially in a sport where you're on an island, right? You're the only person by yourself. And from having talked with people who are really good golfers, the one thing that they talk about in terms of mental game is the fact that there's no subs.
Yeah.
You screw up, you're the same. You're the only person that can go up and, get yourself out of the rough, get yourself back on the fairway, get onto the green, pull even, make it a reasonable gap to get back on track, etc. Because there's nobody else that can really do anything for you. And that's what makes golf so difficult, is that you have to have that intrinsic competitive nature. And from what you've been talking about, you have it within yourself. But what are other things that you learned from playing golf that you didn't know about yourself before, and that you wish that other people would realize that golf can teach you, and that's why it is a good sport to try to play?
I think the biggest thing, this is the biggest lesson that I've taken away that has been huge, not even the difficult year that we're having, but just in general, is just never give up, no matter how easy it may seem or easy to do at a moment. Just keep going. Because in 2013, when I was just getting into golf and just seeing my progress in that, like I said, I never really saw myself going to any sort of university or even applying to a university to be on a team. And so I think just that never ending giving up, whether it be after 3 holes, 9 holes, 18 holes, 36 holes, which I did end up playing a few times in my career, which is crazy to think, going back to starting at 3 holes, that if you just keep pushing and seeing little successes and trusting the process, I think is the biggest thing. You'll see it eventually. And I think that was the biggest thing in 2017, 2018, now 2019, 2020 that I've seen, is that when you trust the process and take those small steps, it's super big. And it really keeps pushing you, and it really keeps you kind of hungry for more. And I think that's the biggest reason why I've also had so much success since 2017, is because I've seen those successes. I've seen what I can do. I've seen what other girls can do, and just ladies golf in general, whether it be the LPGA or just Canadian wise or anywhere, even just competing down the States with the Bisons. It just really keeps you going. And I think having coaches on the Bisons and even swing coaches that I've had, they've really played a key part in that. And that even though that those coaches have pushed me in a certain way to have a certain swing or just develop my game in a certain way, I think it's other life lessons that they've helped me with. Like again, never giving up. I think another thing that golf has really taught is that, like you said, you're the only person out there. And so in life and in many circumstances in other sports, whether it be school or really anything, that sometimes you only have yourself. And if you can figure it out yourself and not really need someone, but it would be helpful to have someone. But if you can figure it out yourself, then you're already ahead of the battle. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've taken away from the sport, is, I guess you can say, independence in a sense as well. Is if you can, again, figure it out yourself, then you're a step ahead of everyone. And going to practice and doing those little things that you really don't feel like doing on a dark day when it's really gloomy outside and you just want to cuddle up or do a book or watch TV or something, but if you go practice and it's going to be benefiting yourself in your game, then you'll do it. And I think that's the biggest thing that is not only has taught me through golf and sports, but just in general, is that doing those little things each day is really helps pay off in the long run. And you don't realize that until you really have success or just see little successes as well.
100%. And especially when it comes to achieving massive success, many people often, I talk about this a lot and I really preach this point because I do my best to practice it all the time, is that, small success every single day is more important than trying to use the silver bullet or the quantum leap method where you achieve 60% success in one day. That's never going to happen. Mm-hmm. And lucky breaks like that never come for people who are not putting in the work all the time. And people will see someone achieve massive success and think, oh man, like that person got really lucky. Why did they get this? Did they really deserve it? But what they don't see is, again, the poster of the iceberg, right? It's this big. And then on this is the line of the water. And then all the hard work is all done here. And then people see the small chunk up here, which clearly exists in a sport like golf, where people only remember the person that won the Masters or whatever, but they don't remember all the things that they had to go through to win, all the people that got really close that didn't. That's also part of the iceberg as well, is that there's many great athletes in golf that don't win for some reason. Obviously it's super hard to win, and you can't let that discourage you as well, because since it is a difficult sport, the lessons that you're going to learn from it are probably going to be more important. Now, in terms of challenges in golf, what would you say has been the lowest moment or the most challenging thing that you ever experienced in your playing career? And then how did you rally back from that? Or what were the things that you used to help pick yourself back up from such a challenging time?
I would say there's two in my career as a junior and as, I guess you could say, in the adult division of golf now, since I'm too old to compete in juniors. But I would say in juniors, the biggest one was in 2015 or 2016. I can't remember the exact year. I came off, the junior was at Rossmere Golf and Country Club. And I came off, and my dad mentioned to me before that round that if you shoot a good round, like, you have a really good chance of going to nationals. And my thought at that time was like, I just want nationals. Like, I haven't made the team ever before that point. I was working for it. I was practicing a good amount, even with working as a 16-year-old at the time. And then I was like, you know what, this is my time. This is my chance. And so I finished up 18 or 16 or whatever it was. And I made a really long putt on 16. I knew by that point, like, I had a really good shot, but little did I know the group in front of me, an individual was shooting like basically par. And I came in and I heard that news and my heart just sank. And I was like, all of that. And I really knew I had a good chance, because when you have a crowd around you in golf and a junior tournament, you kind of know there's something going on. There's like a reason that these people are around you. And so I had that really good sense of like, oh, like, I'm close, or I've made it, or I'm just inches away, or I just need to keep doing what I'm doing. And so I parred out that whole back nine, I believe, and I can't remember the exact score, to be honest, but I was really confident in my round. And coming in, I knew I had a really good shot, and I heard that news of that really good round that my peer shot, and I was like, dang it. And so that really hit me in the stomach. Just even thinking about it, I remember it so vividly that I came off 18 and I was like I was so close. And it was funny because then it was actually that year after that I made the team. And I think it was after that experience that I realized, like, this is just a fork in the road, or a bump in the road, as they say in sport or anything, that you just keep going after what you want, even after a little bump in the road. And so after I learned that, I tweaked my swing a little bit. I filled in the gaps that needed to be filled in for what you can as a junior and just practice more, continue to enjoy the game. And from there, I made the team. I came off and kept my head down. It was actually funny in 2016 when I did make the team, because it was me and that same individual actually going head to head for that last final spot. And I think it was the biggest like adrenaline rush I've ever had as a junior, coming down that back nine, which I vividly remember was also an even back nine. It was probably one of the best nines I've ever played as a junior. And I came in, I told my dad, I'm like, you know what, if I don't make it this year, man, like it was also my last year as a junior. And so that was a huge thing too, because I know that was my last shot. And so after I came off 18, I looked my parents in the eye and I was like, you know what, if I don't make it this year, I tried my best and that's all I can do. And so at the time, I can't remember the Golf Manitoba director, but I think it was, I can't remember the name of him, but he came out to me and he was just like, you got to sign your papers. You're going to Halifax. And I literally looked at the papers and I was like, you're kidding. And so I was just in complete shock. And then it was funny enough because 2017 was the year after that. And then I won the AM. But even after those few years, I think there was still a bump in the road. And that was actually this past year at the AM. I had a really good shot at winning it again. And I just came up to hole 14. I had caught the leader, golfed a really solid round, and I was actually behind the ball, ready to go, ready to set up. And my peer had just, I don't know, like it wasn't the greatest shot that she has had all round. And I don't know exactly how it went, but she didn't have the greatest shot. And I thought in my head, like when any golfer would think in their head, like this is the time to capitalize, put it in the fairway and just let her go. And sure enough, I felt myself off as soon as I approached it. And I knew that all my buys and coaches, all of my friends and peers and coaches would be like, Marissa, step off. And I didn't. And I thought, you know what, this is fine. Like what they call it in bowling is foul line correction. And so I would correct my swing on the way down, knowing that, you know what, I'll still make up for it. Didn't make up for it, put the ball OB, unfortunately, and lost the tournament on hole 14. And I mean, that's the story in that. But I think it was a huge learning lesson that really came from this past year in July was if you don't feel right in anything, like sport-wise, of course, or really in life, but I would say definitely in sport-wise, back off. Because you don't know how it's going to go until you do it. And I've learned that lesson definitely in other sports before, but I think I never really actually did it until that moment, until I realized like this is an issue. So when I pushed that ball right, I was like, hey, it's OB. And I think there might have been a ruling issue. I'm not even sure at this point, but I knew it wasn't a good swing. I knew I should have backed off and I didn't. And the learning lesson was just reset. If you don't feel right, reset. And so even talking it over with some peers and my old Bison coach, she even said, she like, I told you that. And I was like, I know, but I never did it. And I think that's just a huge mental barrier too, that I finally have come over was if you're not good, step back and just restart. And it takes 2 seconds to do, but it'll save you a championship in the end. And it could have, we don't know now because it's in the past, but I think it's just a huge learning lesson. And I think those two really have really shaped my career to what it is today. I mean, I know one of them is more recent than the other, but I think this experience from July this past year will just help me going forward in the future as well for next year and the years to come. So.
Yeah, it's really interesting how, especially in that moment, you're so shocked because you're thinking to yourself as you're going down that you know that it's not going to be good. So you try to make up for it. And I like the analysis you make between bowling and golf. And then as soon as you hit it and then you're like, oh no, this is going to be going out of bounds. This is not good. I feel like there's definitely similar analogies between other sports, but those moments where you realize if you get a chance to step back, make sure to step back. And sometimes there's no chance where you can step back and you just gotta, find a way to push through. And that's where there's that difficult balance between finding when you need to go through and when you need to make sure to take a step back, because you don't want to make any decisions that you look back on and say, well, if I could have changed this, I would have, because I think that's obviously an unfortunate thing about golf, right? How many people have you talked to that say, I would have had this score if I would have done X, Y, Z, or if this ball hadn't have gone out of bounds, or if I wouldn't have scuffed this, or if it wouldn't have sliced into the woods, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, no. And I can easily even think about all of the if, ands, and buts after that round, after that week, after that one shot. It was definitely hard bringing that round in. I know it was actually a former teammate that won, Veronica Ventesnik. And I mean, she had never won the amateur, so I was really happy for her in the sense because she really deserved it, and she's had quite the year, and she's even gotten married now too, which is super cool. So I was really happy that she had pulled it through. But yeah, it's a learning lesson that you'll take forever. And I know when I told all of my bowling coaches as well, they're like, "Oh, Marissa Naylor," and I was like, you know what, like you just don't know until you do it. And I mean, you don't feel it until it happens. And no matter how many alignment drills you do, that's taught me like you'll still have that one moment where you don't feel right. And I've done a lot of alignment drills since being on Bisons. It's one thing that we really have practiced and one thing we really do in our training. And so I think it was just reinsurance that I'm human also, because I know some people think sometimes elite athletes are just kind of like robots sometimes, which is not so true, but it's definitely like the myth that sometimes flies out there. And I think it just that one moment realized like, you know what, like maybe this is something we just need to work on more in the future. And so, yeah, I think it's a learning curve. And I mean, hopefully we can figure it out for next year.
Yeah. I don't think that that's something that is a long-term problem. And especially when it comes to the number of times that you do the same drill over and over. I remember having a conversation several years ago with Sean White, the kicker from the Edmonton Eskimos. And he was talking about when he was with the Alouettes he was with the Alouettes at the time. And he was talking about in practice, he went 21 for 21 on field goals. And in the last one, he missed it wide left, and it was a good hit. And, he looked back at the tee and everything, and it just went wide left. And then the reporter came up to him after practice and asked him, Sean, you had a great practice, but what happened to that last kick? And then he just looked at me, just said to him, "It's the way she goes." And that was it. And in the words of Ray from Trailer Park Boys, he just gave him that's the way she goes. Sometimes she goes, sometimes she doesn't. It didn't go, and that's the way she goes. And when he told me that, it built this human connection that I was really grateful to see that, he's an elite athlete, right? The guy won the Grey Cup that same year, which was crazy after getting cut in place of a rookie kicker. But there was still this element of, similar to golf, kicking and football and golf are like, hand in hand. They're identical twins. And you can have a great day and then just one shot can be bad. One kick can be bad. Or you can have a great kick or a great shot and it just doesn't land in the place that you thought it was going to land, or the wind carries it or something happens and you just got to live with it. And short memory is one thing that I've heard from my coach, who was also big into golf as well. And I think that you can probably speak to how important having a short memory is in golf, especially with all the stories we've already told so far.
Yeah. 100%. Being an elite athlete, you try and forget some of the bad experiences and just learn from them and put them in the past and put them in the back of your brain, so to say. But it's definitely hard. There's definitely been several experiences where I've been on the course and I think, oh, what if this happens? I can think of a vivid college experience. I think it was last year, maybe 2 years ago, where I was coming down the stretch in Bemidji for a title, and the coach at the time, Brianna Tekaruski, was with me because I was getting close. And so she's right in my corner and she was just like, "Marissa, just stay focused, stay what you were doing, and you'll come through." And so I was going for third place at the time because I was tight with the girl in my group who's also going for second. And so that's exactly what I did. And I just kept my head down, and literally kept my head down actually on the golf course, because I know if I peeked up, like I would have saw my teammates, which were super nice because it was a long day on the golf course and you don't really see your teammates obviously for 4 hours. And so I saw them in the corner, saw them on 18 waiting for me. And I never knew what was really going on in that moment. I just knew I was close, and I knew that I needed to stay focused and needed to stay on course and just trust what Brianna was telling me in that moment. For that one time, I've actually had her on the course with me and several times. But that one time a coach can really talk to you, I guess is what I'm saying on golf. Because again, you're not really talking to anyone unless you're playing with someone that you know or something like that. But just keeping my head down that moment really propelled me through that experience. And I think that was another learning curve, that just keeping focused and using all my experience from bowling and Team Canada at the time with 10-pin bowling, it really helped me in a lot of college events and just a lot of training as well with Brianne and Derek Goodwin, who's now the coach with the Women's Bisons. Just a lot of training has really helped, and it gives you a newfound confidence in what you're doing in any sport, anything, even life, whatever you're doing. And it really correlates those experiences together. And it just allows you to have a different perspective on so many things because you have that experience with sport.
So you mentioned the coaches that were there to be able to support you and to provide guidance that allowed with boosting your confidence. In
Mhm.
terms of when you watch golf or when you try to model your game after professional golfers, are there any that you've looked up to in particular a lot when you since you started playing golf, or are you not a person that really tries to model your game after another's?
Totally. I would say modeling my game, I wouldn't say so much. I would say more in the demeanor and how they carry themselves. I've really tried just to, I wouldn't say copy, but definitely look at them and be like, you know what, that's who, I guess you can say who I want to be when I grow up, but that's what the saying is. But I would say no, I definitely few that come to mind in the male aspect of things would be Roy McIlroy. I found him really just a really someone that I really love to watch, as well as Jason Day, Tiger Woods, of course. And then in the female side, Brooke Henderson, because she's a Canadian, and how young she is and how much she's done. That was a really big confidence booster for me seeing that, as well as, oh man, Lexi Thompson was super cool. But I would say those five or six are super just genuine individuals I wish I could meet, but just seeing them on the golf course and just how they've really performed in their careers so far, especially Tiger Woods at the age he is and winning the Masters last year with Masters weekend coming up this weekend. Like it's super cool to see. And it just shows that never give up is, you always hear the saying in sports, but just really how it means and what it means. And it's huge. And I think those are the big people that I've looked up to just to see, again, how they carry themselves, their swings as well as what they do and what's so critical about them, but just really how they've gotten back up from when they've been down, especially again through what Tiger's been through. And I know since I know Brooke's so young, but she's definitely had some hiccups in her career as well, and Lexi Thompson as well, and just a lot of different players. But I would say more in the mental aspect I've definitely looked at. And just seeing how I can be better through what they're doing, as well as how I can benefit my teammates on my team and whoever I'm competing against, and how I can really get an advantage or just improve myself in the long run.
That's a good way to look at it. How a golfer carries themselves as being the thing that you want to copy or mimic. Because obviously, if you look at Tiger's swing, I saw a video of him drive 300 yards with a 3-wood, and my knees hurt watching the video, especially my right knee. And it makes I mean, growing up as a kid, I knew nothing about golf. Like, we're talking absolutely zero. And I was always so confused. And I was like, man, like, how do you have back surgery from playing golf? What are you talking about? Or
Yeah.
how do you get knee surgery? Like, how do you get hurt playing golf? Like, no one's touching you. And then when I watched that video, and then after playing golf, everything came together and all made
Yeah.
sense in the span of 8 seconds. And so
Yeah, there's definitely been injuries, I can tell you that one for sure. But no, I think it's definitely it takes a team or even a village to make an athlete, to form an athlete, to help them have a career that they have. And I've definitely had some people in the medical field help me out. I'm grateful that one of my good friends is a chiropractor, and he has definitely made a few adjustments in my swing to benefit before championships, before traveling, anything, as well as just various people on the Bison's team as well that have helped out. And again, it just takes a lot of people to not only support an athlete, but push them and keep them going and provide encouragement when it's needed, and even give them a little kick in the butt when they also need it, because there's definitely times with that as well. And yeah, I think it definitely takes a team, and I'm honestly grateful for my team, because I can tell you that 2017, everything that's happening before that and after that wouldn't have been possible without them. So
that's very true. And there is a bit of a team aspect in golf, but it does exist outside of the actual playing of the game itself. And that's the thing that I think is such I guess a forgotten about aspect of golf, is that people think, oh, Tiger just shows up and shoots 10 under and goes home and that's it. But, having your caddy and them knowing you well, and how you eat and how you take care of your body physically and mental game. Golf is probably the most difficult mental game. And that is probably one of the most important aspects of golf is your mental game, as we've talked about. And so when you see how golfers carry themselves, it really creates this rapport within a person who's trying to mirror that, to be able to carry something that is transferable, right? I talked about that concept on a previous episode with great public speaker, former BC Lion Angus Reid, about it's not about what you do, it's about how you do it, right? Yeah. So can you think about how Tiger would have felt when he was going through all the the turmoil and series of events in the late 2000s, early 2010s he was going through. And for him to come back after all that, after all the surgeries, and to come back and win the Masters, that takes a lot of strength up here, and it does take a lot of support around him as well. And I think that's
100%.
one of the most impressive things about his win, period, in the story. And I mean, in terms of you watching golf, like, is there anything that you've ever seen more impressive than Tiger's Masters win last year?
I mean, I'm too young to even think about Gary Player and Arnold Palmer and all them, but it's just seeing like historical videos and that, like, you definitely see it. And like Jack Nicklaus, of course, almost forgot about him, which you can never forget about Nicklaus, but he, I would say his performance in the Masters last year was phenomenal. Like, you cannot look over it and just be like, and it's a topic of question that people always bring up of like, is he the great? And I mean, I don't really know, to be honest. I'm not probably one to say that, but he's definitely up there. And I think his performance in the Masters just really shows his determination and his grit to fight through everything he has done. And it shows athletes of any kind, of any caliber, that it doesn't matter what you go through, it's how you come from it. And it's how it shapes you going forward and how you're going to let your past determine your future. And I think that's the best way that I've learned. And that's the best way that I've learned from also my mentors and my coaches, and how they've taught me through my tough experiences to get me to win the amateur, to get me to do everything I've done with Bisons, and everything even going forward to what's coming in the future as well.
Yeah, it's so interesting to see, I mean, people talk about the debates of who's greater than who. And I mean, for all we know, like, Tiger, you can say he's the GOAT, but then people who are older will say like, Jack Nicklaus, let me pull out his resume and pull out how dominant he was against his competition. But again, eras matter. And obviously how they did things and how they came back is, I think, the most valuable lesson for young golfers or people aspiring to play golf, or people that don't even play golf that just want to learn a lesson from a great athlete, is how they dealt with a difficult situation. Because when he was on the cover of every single, PGA Tour video game, it just seemed like an automatic default sequence of events. But then the second that he wasn't, after whatever it was, 10 plus years in a row, then that's when everyone just thought, oh, I guess he's done. It's over for him. And then all of a sudden, the second he wins,
everything goes
back. Tiger's back, everybody. And that was the statement being bellowed throughout the entire halls everywhere in the world. And it was really inspiring to see, honestly. I wasn't a big golf fan before, and I've definitely gathered a really huge appreciation for it now. And to see what he did after being at the height of following sports, I guess, because I started following around 2006. That's when sports really became.
It took a decline, and
like 4 years later, like that's when like Tiger, I really knew what was happening with him. It made so much sense to me, and to see right at the beginning of knowing what golf was, him go through that, and then see this 10 years later was like, okay, this is pretty impressive. I don't know if anyone else could have done this after all the being dragged through the mud, et cetera, but it's
I think and I think you actually point out a good thing about like the younger generation too, is that one thing that I've really enjoyed in like my career and just doing with Bisons, and that even before Bisons and even learning from the greats too, is pay it forward. Like, you have so many experiences as an athlete that you can provide to juniors, people that want to join college or a university of any kind, of any caliber, of any division, states up here, doesn't even matter, that they can do that. They just have to keep going. And I think that's the biggest thing, that working with juniors at Pine Ridge Golf Club was super nice and just super eye-opening, and that there are so many juniors out there that want to golf and want to get into it. It's just a matter of getting them into it and giving that kickstart essentially to them, and providing them with the tools to do if they want to do it, and although keeping them in those other sports as well, but just letting them know about golf, because once they know, they want to keep doing. And that's the biggest thing as well, is pushing that next generation, because that's the next generation of golfers when we're gone, or when, like, however you want to look at it, I guess. But that's the biggest thing. And helping that next generation is not only super rewarding, but it's super fulfilling, because you can see who's going to be taking over the women's golf team, who's going to be taking over the men's golf team, who's taking over any golf team really in the future.
And on that note, it kind of transitions into the next question I was going to ask. So you talk about paying it forward to the next generation, and obviously, unless you are an absolute godsend at golf, there's not many Canadians, to my knowledge. I'm not a PGA dictionary, but to my knowledge, there doesn't seem to be a great number of Canadians that are competing in the PGA in comparison to obviously people from the US or people who are European. So the reality is, and obviously with many other professional sport, and even a sport like golf, where you got to make the tournament to make money, is that what is it that people are going to do with their lives when they're done, playing competitive golf? Obviously, golf is one of the best sports that you can play for the rest of your life. I would argue the best sport you can play for the rest of your life, because, you can take it easy. You don't have to kill yourself or bend over backwards too much to keep playing. So in terms of the way that you've kind of assessed, or you probably have done this, is assess the next few years going forward with your golf career and how that ties into what you're doing with school and what you want to do with your career, et cetera. What are the things that are kind of blending you found between what you are doing and have done in golf versus what you're doing right now that is leading you into what you want to do in the future with your career?
Good question. I think the biggest thing that I have taken away from golf is enjoy the moment, enjoy the experience, because you don't know when you're going to have it again. The biggest thing, what I mean by that is these experiences I've had, whether it be going to Nova Scotia with the junior team, going to Guelph when I won the AM, or to different nationals like Red Deer last year, you don't know when you're going to get that again, because you don't know when you're going to be stopping golf or when your career, like you said, might take over. So yeah, being a graduate now of the rec faculty at U of M, and now into Asper, it's super nice because I'm kind of making that transition, and golf has really helped me not only propel that in a career way, but to still golf, but use it now as an enjoyable sense to enjoy my career and enjoy where I'm going and connect with professionals in the field. Gratefully, with our fall fundraisers with Bisons and our spring fundraisers, we have a lot of professionals come, and it's a great way for us to not only talk with those professionals, but just see how they went through golf, how they use golf, where they're at in their careers, making a connection to them. And so that was one thing that I'm really grateful for with Bisons that has really helped me in my career. But graduating in rec management is definitely super cool. I mean, going to school with you is also super cool. Cool. But yeah, doing that degree was really eye-opening. And now going into the business side of things, also owning my own business, it's super nice to see the correlation, see how sport not only helps you on the field, on the court, in the lanes, on the course, but in a life aspect, and using that in business, in Sport Manitoba work that I'm doing, in any sense really, that is just super cool to make that connection of like never giving up, just trusting the process, knowing, like understanding that what you know and how you can improve yourself going forward is super huge that I've found in golf and in tenpin and bowling as well, and that I'm using now in my career. And I think now also with my youth career ending in tenpin bowling, similar to golf, it's that transition. And I think that transition has become so smooth because of sport, because of the experiences I've had, and just because of everything I've had and experience wise and gained and knowledge and all this stuff to use in the future, but also look forward to what's to come in the future and to use and to get better at it as well. And so to come, I think, again, is finishing my degree with marketing at Asper, which is super cool, and definitely a transition at first with the online learning. But I was super, super proud to graduate from the recreation management faculty. I'm heading into now my last year as a Bison, which is definitely bittersweet. It goes by fast. Like I know in 2017, when I first joined the Bisons, I looked at my teammates in the eye. I was like, this is going to be a fast ride, guys. Like, we're going to snap our fingers and we're going to be done. And it's literally felt like yesterday that I just started the Bisons, and next year is my last year. And so, I mean, we'll see how it goes. But unfortunately, this year we weren't able to travel, but we're hoping that changes next year. I know we would love to go back to Canada West, as I had a really positive experience there last year with placing 8th out of a good amount of Canadians that really were talented across the country. And it was really nice to compete at a university level and a Canadian university level as well, because you always hear those college stories that you have to go down south. And I think that's the biggest thing that this program has given me, is staying home, continuing my schooling, continuing my other sport with being a dual sport athlete, continuing my business, all these things, but still staying home and seeing my family and friends and still pursuing something that I've always wanted to pursue. Um, and I think going forward, I'm definitely going to continue golfing. I know it's a question I've even gotten in my career so far. Is like, are you going to continue? And I was like, absolutely. Like continuing bowling, golf in the whole 9 yards. Just using a different sense now. Use it more as a career, but definitely still compete. Like I'm definitely looking forward to competing in Golf Manitoba tournaments next year. Hopefully, go to nationals again, depending on how everything goes. And we'll just see how time tells. But it's definitely a sport that's really helpful to use in a career sense that I found is really beneficial for me and has helped me a ton so far. And I can't wait to keep using it in the future.
Well, Marissa, we're getting close to the end of our time here, and it's been a super, super great conversation. And I want to ask one more question to wrap up our conversation today. And that is, this is the granddaddy question of them all when it comes to talking to golfers who play across Canada. What's the best course you've played at? And book it. We're writing this down, and we're taping this to the wall for all the superintendents out there to hear.
Goodness gracious. Okay. That's a big one. I wasn't expecting that one. I would say the best one that I have played personally would obviously be in BC, because who doesn't like golfing in the mountains? And I believe it was called the Bear Club at Canada West last year. It's a dual course. I think there's 3 different 9s. It's super, super nice. It's amazing. It's in Okanagan, Kelowna area. Super nice. Offers tons of obviously nice viewings of the mountains, but there's 3 different levels of golf. Like you can have the elevation, then you can have the flat land, I guess BC flat land compared to us in the prairies, but and then you have a whole different 9 as well. And it's really challenging, but if you can manage the course well in any competition, even if it's for fun, you'll score well. And I think when you're golfing on a course that you can manage really well, then you deserve to have a good score. And so I think that's another big thing with golf that sometimes people overlook is course management. And that's what really differentiates the amateurs compared to the pros, and amongst other things as well, I'm sure. But that was the biggest thing that when I played there last year, it was huge. And I think that's the biggest reason why I was successful at Canada West, and obviously a few hiccups, but that would be one course that if I can travel because of COVID, but if I could travel tomorrow, I would definitely go back there.
And this just sprouted into my head, and just kind of a follow up to that. So you talk about you'd love to play at that course because you've been there before, but if there was one course that you could play at, no restrictions, wherever you want in the entire world, where would it be? Just one. If you just Augusta got one free ride to go play wherever
Augusta
you want.
National, Masters Augusta National, hands down. I can just walk the course and I'll be satisfied. But that's on my bucket list, is to go see the Masters in person. Play around there if I can. I don't care who I play with. I don't care if I play alone. I would just want to play it. And yeah, it would say even that if there's a second option, I don't know if that's possible, but I would say St. Andrews, where the history of golf, that's super nice. And those 2 for sure. Definitely want to play those before the time is over, or before, even if I'm not even golfing anymore, I'll just grab some clubs from the club and head out there. I don't even care if I bring my own or not. So, but no, those 2 for sure.
Well, Marissa, it's been a thrilling conversation to have talking about golf right in the weekend of the Masters. This is super awesome. I'm really glad that you're able to be on and to share the wealth of knowledge you have about, I think, the world's fastest growing game in North America. People have loved to play golf over the last 6 to 7 months. I think it's a great game to play. Definitely frustrating for people who are impatient with, really fast learning curves, but it's a lifelong game, and it's a marathon, 100%. Not a sprint, right? And I think that's a great analogy too.
Totally. No, you say yourself. I think it's definitely a game that you could play when you're 10, can play a game when you're 90. And my grandma's a perfect example of it. She's 85 and she still goes out there. And I mean, she's one of my biggest inspirations. I'll say it there, that the fact that she can get around a ball at 85 years old is beyond words. And it doesn't care if it goes 5 feet, 100 feet, 100 yards. I don't care. It's the fact that she's out there, and it's super nice to play such a game like that can last a lifetime.
Well, thank you again, everybody, for listening to today's episode with Marissa Naylor, who's been 3-time MVP of Bison's Women Golf, was the captain of the team, as well was the 2017 amateur champion of women's golf in Manitoba.